All right. What's up? What's up? This is going to be a pretty live stream, and I don't know if anyone's going to tune in, but um, couple of comments. Let me just actually check audio. Audio is good. Okay, so we're ready to get started. Um, a quick debrief on why I'm doing this is the last few days has been a lot of chatter about AI and a lot of folks being interested in just LLMs in general. And I had a few conversations with folks about using ChatGPT 4 specifically, their API, or paying $20 for it, $20 a month for it. And one of the conversations, I was like, if you spend just a little bit of time, if you're concerned about the costs, you should take advantage and learn how to use the new transformer pipeline library from Hugging Face, because it's so simple to build your own LLM. We're not really building it. We're just we're doing something pretty simple. We're just using open source LLMs and bringing it into our Python environment, or rather bringing it into a environment and then using Python to interact with it. It's super simple, and it'll blow you away how super simple it is. It'll make more sense once I actually get into it. But you can all do this and follow along and do this in like just a few minutes, and you can have very powerful open source models, not just LLMs, but like text to audio, text to text, text to video, all these types of models in just a mere matter of minutes. And then you can actually package it up into an application and even sell it if you wanted to. But wanted to show how super simple this is if you want to try it out yourself. Um, so let me go real quick and I'll share my screen and I'll show you what I mean. Share screen. What we're going to use is, if you're not familiar with Hugging Face, this is Hugging Face. They have lots of great things on here. And what I want to show today is, in just a few lines of code, how you can take one of the models from this models here, one of these open models, open source models, and bring it into your environment. So let's take a look at large language models. Like text generation. So you can basically search for the different models of your choice. You can do different filters like licenses. You only want certain like Creative Commons license or Apache license, but basically you can find different open source models that you want to use and bring in. I'm not going to go through which models. I already have one picked out just for the purposes of this demo, but you can find all these amazing models that you can just use and bring in. So let's say you wanted to use this first model on the top. You click into it, and then over here on the right has this Use in Transformers tab. If you click that, the code's actually already there. You can just grab that code and load it into your environment, and then you're pretty much done. It abstracts away so much of the technical complexity. It kind of blows my mind. But let me show you how this is going to work. I'm not going to use this model, but the code is going to pretty much look very similar to this. So what I'm going to show next is, let's go to show this tab. My favorite, Colab. You guys are welcome to follow along. This should be super simple. You don't even need to know a lot of technical stuff to get started with this. So I have a Colab notebook. Don't need to install anything. It's web-based. Let's just call this like chatbot. And then what I'm going to do is first, because this is a new environment, I need to install the library. And what we need to install is the Transformers library from Hugging Face. And they have a bunch of different models there. So just take a minute to install. And then after we install it from this library, we specifically want the pipeline module. I'm just going to start typing it out down here so we can get started. So from this transformers library that we just installed, we want the pipeline. And pipeline is pretty much what it says. You are going to that page I showed earlier that had all the different models. You are going to bring in via the pipeline that open source model and all of its complexities into this environment, and we can use it. So that's what I'm going to do. So this is just a single line of code from transformers import pipeline. So that's going to take a second. So I'm going to start writing the next one. What we need to do next is we want to we want to define our model, which model we want to use, and then we want to put that into an object. In this case, it would be a chatbot. That's what I want to build, some chatbots, very similar to like ChatGPT. And so I'm going to call this, let me just actually comment the code. So I'm going to say define the chatbot. So I'm going to have a variable called chatbot, and we're going to use that pipeline module that we have. And because Hugging Face has many different types of models you can use, you do have to say which one you're bringing in, because they do a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure all the things we're passing back and forth is in the correct format. So in this case, we need to tell them that what we're trying to do is we want to have a conversation with the model, so they know it's like a conversational chatbot. So I need to define a task. So you can see it here. It is the conversation task. And then the model I'm going to use is just this small one, which is great because it's fast. I don't want to spend, it's not the most powerful model, but it serves this purpose. It's this one from Facebook. So I have my task, my model. Okay. And let me see here. Oops, this is conversational. Oh, forgot the comma. There it is. So this right now is doing all the complexity for us, and it brings in all these different whatever it's doing. Basically, it does all the legwork for us. Now we have a full-fledged chatbot in our system that we can use. But so that's defined in chatbot. Next, we are going to define our prompt. Like, what do we want to ask? So in this case, define a prompt. So let's do something fun. How are you doing today? Okay, that'll be a prompt, and that prompt is saved in this variable called message. So next, I want another module from the transformers library, and this one allows us to have a conversation with our chatbot. In this case, from the same library, so we have the transformers library, we are going to import the conversation module. Fairly simple. And then what we want to do is convert our message into the correct format using this conversation module. The way we do that, we're just going to define a new variable called conversation. And this is the variable we're going to use to continue the conversation with the chatbot. And so conversation, we're going to use this module to convert our message to the correct format, just like that. And then we can just check it just to make sure it's right by printing the conversation. There it is. So it has a specific ID. This is our conversation. And then the very first message, if you will, is this, which is from the user. And that user is myself, of course. Okay, so that is it. And then we print, not this. We want to now have this message and send it to our chatbot so it can respond to it. And so what we want to do is we're going to define the conversation again, and then have our chatbot respond to it just like that. So this is the conversation. The chatbot is going to read the conversation, respond to it, and then it'll save back in our original conversation variable. And so it's just taking a second, doing its thing. Let's just wait. Okay. So it responded, and all that response is saved to that conversation. Now, to see the conversation, what we want to do is print it. So there it is. We have my message, and then the assistant is the chatbot, and they responded with, "I'm doing well, thank you. How are you? What do you like to do for fun?" So in just a few lines of code, you can basically build your own chatbot fairly simply. Uh, Hopefully that's really cool. I thought that was really cool. I'm going to continue just building this out, and I'll show you what this looks like. The next thing I would be wanting to build out is the ability to go back and forth with it. And the way you do that is the conversation object is like an array where you can just keep adding different messages to it. So one way you might suggest doing this is like add message, and then you would want to define who the person is speaking. So the role is the user. So this would be me in this case. And then we can continue the conversation. And so they ask, how are you? What do you like to do for fun? You can say, I like to code for fun. What about you? Okay. Oh, I missed oh, this is good. So let's just double check again, make sure that that worked. Okay, yeah. So you can see this is the original conversation. This is what they responded, and this is next. And I should have added, the reason you do this is how you keep the context to make sure that the LLM understands that you had already asked questions like this. So they can refer back to the conversation history to make sure that context is preserved. Okay. And then from there, you just go ahead and just continue doing what we did at first. You take that conversation, you have our chatbot respond to it, and then you will print it out again. So there's my response. You can see it's right here. It's thinking. It's reading my message. Actually, it takes a while. And then it responded. What kind of work do you do for a living? He is a programmer. Hopefully that's pretty cool. So again, super simple. If you wanted to have your own LLM, if your own like DALL-E image generator, your own video generator, in just a few lines of code, you can do that using Hugging Face's library. So I think that's super cool. I'll probably just stay on for another few minutes and show you this a little bit more cleaned up. So this right here, we're just kind of writing code and interacting with it. If you wanted to turn this into, let's say, an actual function or a script you can use, and perhaps even embed it. My favorite is like Streamlit. You can embed it into some user interface that allow other people to interact with your LLM. So basically, you're like building ChatGPT, except it's free. Okay, let me show you what I would do if we were to basically refactor all this code into a actual program, because this is very messy stuff right here. I'm just gonna delete all this and clean this up. And I'll show you something that looks a little better. Close, stop. I want this. Very messy. Okay, so we don't need this either. Let's start clean, and let's start from the beginning. So you already saw what we did earlier. We need to use the transformers library, And then we will need the pipeline and conversation modules. That's the first thing we do, right? Now, to make it more clean, usually when you're writing software, you want to have functions, right? Because you can keep using those functions and call it. And then you want to have a main section where like you kind of define the main, parts of your program. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to turn everything we just did into different functions and then organize it in a main section. So the very first thing kind of mirrors what we did initially is we probably want to bring in the model, except we'll use a function to do all that. So we're going to define our first function, and we're going to call it initialize chatbot. And in this case, we have our model name. We're going to use the same model as before. This is the Facebook model. Distill. Okay, there it is. And then like this, I'm going to have chatbot. So same exact thing we did earlier. You have a chatbot. We're going to use the pipeline function, define all the same stuff, conversational. And then the model is the model name. And then we're just going to return the chatbot. So it instantiates that model into chatbot, and it's going to return back that chatbot for us to use in our conversations later. Okay, the next function that makes the most sense is we want to start the conversation, right? So we're just create a function called start conversation. Obviously, to have a conversation, we need to bring in our chatbot. So we're going to use that as our first parameter. We're going to bring that in. And then, of course, it needs to interact with the message. So we are going to pass in a message, in this case, specifically an initial message. And it's going to answer that message. And so same as before, we have a conversation variable, and we are going to convert our initial message to that object. And then we are going to pass that object to our chatbot so it can respond. And then once it's done, we're going to return that conversation. So we have both our message and then the chatbot's response. Fairly simple so far. Oop, didn't mean to do that. Make sure this is doing okay. Go back up here. Hopefully this is good. Okay. Next, we want to be able to keep adding to the conversation after we started. So we're going to do a function for continuing the conversation by adding message to conversation. And as you would expect to do this, we're going to need our chatbot. We want to preserve the history. So we're going to want the entire conversation up until that time. And then we want the new message that we are sending to the chatbot. So in this case, new message. Okay, tab. And then here, you saw this earlier. To add a new message, or rather append, we do this add message. And we have to make sure we do this format. And then we have to define the role. So this is a user, which is me. And I want to add my message in this content variable. And that message is going to be the new message that I pass in from the function. And after that, what we're going to do is have the conversation equal whatever the chatbot responds with. So chatbot conversation. Once it's done, we return the conversation. So fairly straightforward so far, right? And at the very end, you notice that in order to see the conversation, we have to print it. So then we want another function for printing. So print conversation, oops. And then simply print. And we want to let whoever know that it's the bot who is responding. And then we want the conversation generated responses. So this just brings in the response. very last message there. Okay. So that is all the functions we need. So we just have 4 functions to get our chatbot working. And then now we want the main section to organize all of our code. So define main, and let's comment the code here. Initialize the chatbot. So this is the very beginning. So chatbot equals, we're going to call our function. I think that's our function. Yep. So that will start that up. And then now we're going to start that initial message. So let's say start a conversation with an initial message. And we want to be able to interact with it on our own. So we want to have a user input in this case. We don't want to hard code a message. So let's say we want some user input. So this initial message, we're going to use this input function that allows us to type something in. And this would be me. So lets me know that I should be saying something. And then we will then have this conversation variable. And we're going to kick it off with our function and pass in that chatbot, and then the initial message that contains the message we just defined. So that'll be the very first message. And then after we get it, we of course want to see it. So we want to print the initial message from the chatbot. So we're going to use our function, print conversation. And so that'll basically print the chatbot's response to my initial message. And then for the next part, because we want the chatbot to continuously interact with us, we're going to want to write a loop. And in this case, we wanted to just continue to interact or respond to our messages until we, for all of time. So we're going to write a loop until we stop, kind of thing. I'm going to write a while loop. So while this is true, we have a new message, and that new message we are going to define again. So we're going to use the input function, and then we're going to say the same thing, new message, and we repeat the exact same thing you saw earlier. We have a conversation variable, but this time we use the other function that we created that allows us to add to it. So add message to conversation. We pass in the chatbot, the old conversation, so it has context, and then the new message over here. Now, once that's done, we will want to see it. So we were going to print that conversation. Okay. That is the end of the main function. Next, we're going to make it run. Hopefully this works. Okay, cross my fingers. All right, so here is my prompt. Okay, how are you today? And it's thinking. So far, so good. So this is our initial message. I am doing well, thank you. How are you this evening? Do you have any plans? I do. I'm actually live streaming right now. What are you doing? So this is now going through the loop. It should be up here where it is adding. Oh, wow, that sounds interesting. I'm going to watch a movie with my boyfriend. What do you like to eat? I like to eat pizza. What kind of food do you eat? Very interesting. Hopefully you find this interesting as well. And I'm probably going to end the live stream in just a minute. Again, had lots of interesting conversations about LLMs this past week. A lot of people asking about ChatGPT and all the other models out there. This video was just to demonstrate how insanely easy it is to use the Hugging Face library to bring in open source models and do all these crazy things in just a few lines of code. Hopefully this was fun, informative, and helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and thanks for watching. See y'all next time. Bye.